We are now fresh off of the finale of the 4th season of the anime, with the first official trailer being released for the movie trilogy that is now in production, that will cover the adaptation for the Infinity Castle storyline, which is the manga's longest and penultimate arc. So we are very much closing in on the endgame for the anime that, no matter how one personally feels about it, did a lot more for the overseas anime and manga industry than some people would like to admit. And that's where the video's subject comes in. This story has broken countless records, obliterated them in fact, and that has led to it drawing the ire of many a fan over the years since the first season of the anime was released to arguably unrivaled success back in 2019. There have been some truthful points, there have been some hurtful points, but Demon Slayer basically learned that popularity is both a blessing and a curse. So the manga was first released in February 2016 and lasted until May 2020 with a total of 205 chapters. I did read the manga after watching the first season after the manga ended, although I did forget most of it by the time the Mugen Train movie was released. I only remember the stuff relating to Gyomei Himejima because he's my favourite character, and that's not a knock on the quality of the story, by the way, that's just the fault of my memory at the time, although the quality is definitely a topic of discussion that we will get to. Anyway, from my perspective, or what I know at least, the manga was not something that was being pushed as a must-read story until the anime came out. So as for the initial impact of the first season, it was big. It's very well noted how much One Piece is praised and worshipped in Japan, and it was the highest selling manga for 11 consecutive years from 2008 up to 2018. Then Demon Slayer came along and sold 12 million copies in 2019, near enough 2 million more than One Piece did and 4.5 million more than the third placed Kingdom. And I am sure you are aware that is small fry numbers compared to what's coming. Jump forward a year to 2020 and a little thing called the coronavirus showed up and shut the whole world down. So stuck inside, people have a lot of spare time, and what do you do with that spare time? Read Demon Slayer, because it sold 82 million copies that year, 10 times more than Kingdom in second place. And to emphasize how insane that is, the previous record for annual manga sales was One Piece in 2011 with 37 million copies sold, and that was during the time that Marineford was being adapted in the anime, one of the most acclaimed shonen manga arcs, if not manga arcs, period. So more than double that number. And there's always that conversation of whether or not anime is mainstream yet, or how mainstream it is, what series have had the biggest impact on it. Dragon Ball way back when, Bleach, Naruto and One Piece, the big three, Attack on Titan and so on. It's obvious that there is no single series that made anime and manga mainstream, but this is something that people may not like, and that's that Demon Slayer is one of those series that had a significant enough of an impact to be mentioned amongst the others. And throw on top of that the monumental success of the Mugen Train movie, which made $453 million worldwide and became Japan's highest grossing film both domestically and globally, and again in the next year 2021. 29.5 million sales. This is the side of its popularity that made it into such a phenomenon. So I have listed out all of this without mentioning anything remotely regarding the actual quality of the manga storytelling. Because when anyone talks about Demon Slayer 99.5 times out of 100, the conversation will revolve around the insanity that is the visual feast of the anime's animation. The blend of CG with traditional 2D, the vibrancy of the colors, the fluid and smooth movement, and how that movement is paced. There's a very good reason that there are those who believe Demon Slayer's animation is some of the best, if not the best, there has ever been. It is so good, in fact, an argument can be made that it is partly the reason that we have had so much more top tier animation from other series since its initial release, because we as fans have gotten so very spoiled and the competition has had to keep up. And thankfully for us, that competition has kept up. Anyway, for an anime, its animation is kind of the make or break for so many people that if it does not look good, they will not watch it. It's one of the big things that weekly anime struggle with, including some of the best in the form of the big three, which turns people away from giving them a fair chance, especially when these stories all fall into the shonen genre, or more specifically the battle shonen genre. So what of the quality of the story then? The main character Tanjiro is on a mission to save and restore his sister Nezuko's humanity, and in doing so he gets involved in a millennium-long feud between the Demon Slayer core and the demons, namely Kibutsuji Muzan, their progenitor. The plot does not deviate or grow to be something more than that really. Tanjiro is an extremely kind-hearted person, almost to a fault, and has great talent and determination. And we've come across a few points of criticism already. For Tanjiro himself, an argument can be made that he, with his very empathetic and kind ways, he is actually harder to get behind or relate to. And even with his few moments of rage, you wouldn't put him amongst the best main characters on offer. And also, by today's standards especially, the plot can be considered very thin when comparing it to other series that have defined generations of the shonen manga industry and subsequently the entire manga industry. And with the thousands of manga that have been written, Demon Slayer would be hard pressed to create something together that no one else has ever done or seen, which isn't necessarily a critique in and of itself, of course. It's just the truth that story tropes and cliches are called such for a reason, because they are very common, like the use of flashbacks, a student-teacher relationship, losing family, found family, a group of the best in the business. There's not really any way that Demon Slayer leaves its comfort zone, and that would make it stand out amongst its contemporaries. And this is a more subjective part, and that's the depth of the surrounding cast of characters. The main trio's other parts are Inosuke and Zenitsu, who are very clearly their own characters. Their defining traits are just that. They are defining. Inosuke is loud and short-tempered, Zenitsu is cowardly and has a low self-esteem. There's of course a bit more to them than that, but those traits I just listed are what you will remember them for. And I am not saying all of this to try and diminish the story or to talk down on it and its achievements, because the main point that I want to make here is that being generic or following well-defined tropes does not equal bad storytelling. Yes, it does kind of limit the story from going above and beyond and being remembered as one for the ages, but there's a reason why there are tropes and cliches in stories in the first place, and that's because they are tried and tested and trusted beats of stories that have been proven to work across a multitude of different types of story. All those that I have listed previously are things you can find in the greatest, farthest reaching series out there. The use of flashbacks, one of One Piece's greatest strengths. Student-teacher relationships, Naruto and Jiraiya, one of the story's greatest duos. Losing family and found family. Look at each of the four biggest shonen, Dragon Ball and the big three. All of the main characters have lost at least a part of their family and gathered friends who have essentially become a second family. And groups of the best. You have the captains of the Gote 13, the 5 Kage, the 4 emperors. These are all things that are vital, indispensable parts of their respective stories. So back to Demon Slayer, I talked about Tanjiro being maybe one-dimensional, but he doesn't need to be the most complex for us to be able to follow his journey. He has a very clear motivation that no one can doubt. He wants to save his sister and avenge his family. I mean, that is something I can easily get behind. His personality does not get on my nerves at all, and as much as he can be a bit too much of a goody two-shoes, I actually quite like how pure he is, again, no matter how simple it is. And like I was talking about with Inosuke and Zenitsu, there is such a great variety in the designs of the characters. It's one of Demon Slayer's strongest assets. The characters may not have the incredible depth of those in other series, but they are each undoubtedly unique with their traits as well, such as the hashira and their confidence or calmness, whether they're quiet or passionate, pious or aggressive, and that is all built upon when they do get more focus in each of their respective arcs. And in a way, they serve to represent the many ways that demons, the bad guys, are viewed. Some people are scared of them, some people despise them, some people pity them. But of course the main point here is just how colourful the cast of characters is. The student-teacher relationship, let's take Urokudaki and Tanjiro. Not only is this trope a fun and believable way for our protagonist to grow, here it serves as a nice bit of world building with Urokudaki being the former water hashira and through Sabito and Makomo, his former students who were killed by a demon, and the link with Giyu, the current water hashira, it's a nice way to link things together. And the action, away from the animation standpoint of things, the action on its own is also a very strong point for the series, and some nice choreography to go along with that. So with everything I've just said, each of those things are aspects that still could have been expanded upon, that had the potential to be something more, which again isn't something limited to Demon Slayer, but is something that can be attributed to any story. There is always room for improvement, but at the same time you don't need to be perfect or the most complex story with the grandest world building, greatest character depth and so on for it to be enjoyable, because if it was that way, the pool of stories to pick from would be quite small. And again, does the animation of the adaptation play the biggest role in its popularity? Yes, that's still true. There's no way or point in shying away from that fact. And the story is not anything special, but that does not automatically mean that it is bad. It is still good and it is still enjoyable. The main issue on this topic, I think, comes from all of the new eyes that Demon Slayer brought to the anime and manga world. Of course, before watching any anime, people will have their own preconceived notions on it, and then when they watch Demon Slayer, they automatically think it's one of the better ones purely because of the fact that they watched it and enjoyed it. And when moving on to try other anime that don't look anywhere near as good as Demon Slayer from a visual perspective, they default to thinking Demon Slayer is the best, which isn't the most complex train of thought and obviously makes no sense. But then again, they are still only new to the industry and not everyone watches stuff from a critical viewpoint, they just want to be entertained. So then that creates discord with the veterans of anime who have seen it all, read it all, and there are those who do delve deep into the themes, the characters, the world building of a story. So when Demon Slayer, with all of its popularity, can't really hold its own against any of the heavy hitters in each of those categories, it kind of becomes a target where people think its praise is unjustified and the story doesn't deserve the quality of animation that it got. But all in all, the truth is it is a senseless argument. If you are not a fan, that's fine, but if you don't like the praise that it's getting, that just seems kind of pointless. Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy, or how about you introduce them and recommend other stories that you think are better, because it's not really fair for Demon Slayer to be the target of complaints and anger over things that aren't even its fault. The hype has definitely died down since the first couple seasons, but the last couple seasons of the anime still looked incredible and did great numbers. And with the upcoming movie trilogy that says it's adapting the Infinity Castle arc, but I'm assuming it will also adapt the final arc as well, how about, rather than looking at Demon Slayer as something that got far more than you think it deserves, how about we just look at it as a representation of how far anime and manga has come, both in terms of visual greatness and its global reach.